Welcome to What's My Tagline, a show where we put the microphone in front of the people who are typically behind the scenes, those responsible for marketing, sales, social media, PR, and event management. Well, hello, and welcome to What's My Tagline. I'm your host, Carol Flagg. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm super excited to welcome Nicky Battle, President of Supreme Communications, one of the largest full-service PR communications agencies dedicated to a what's next approach in healthcare and life sciences. Nicky's joining me today to discuss AI's impact on communications. Obviously, that's of interest to everybody listening in. Nicky, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Carol. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm just, I've had a sort of a series of episodes in the last few months devoted to AI, no surprise.
hmm
Um, but I'm pretty excited about talking with you and looking forward to what you have to share. But before we begin, uh, as you know, my first question of all my guests, I gave you a little heads up, is if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
I love to talk about PR as being the architects of trust, and I would give myself the same tagline.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So architects of trust in the sense of building relationships, building
That's right.
communications.
That's
Okay, yeah,
right. And we
yeah.
own those relationships in media. We own those relationships in the influence voices. We own the relationships on the ground. So whether that's advocacy or the patients themselves, and we bring those stories to life. And I think there's a lot of power in being the people that are supposed to steward that story from those very influential voices. So yes, we architect that trust.
Yeah, I'm glad you that's your tagline because actually I want to talk to you a little bit later on in the episode about the trust factor. So
That's right.
that's great. That's great. All right. So before we talk about AI though, give our audience sort of a Cliff Note version of your career journey and how you ended up as president of Supreme Communications.
Yes, that's a fantastic question. It's a long answer, but the short one is that I actually started in digital and entertainment. So I found my way over to pharma after running my own agency. I had a digital agency called Think Tank, and I led the digital strategy, social media strategy for entertainment brands, for artists. We were the digital AOR for Lady Gaga, and
Oh.
yes, of course, that put us on the map in very big ways, and we landed a lot of consumer brand work at that point, our very first government campaign. And at the end of those 10 years of that tireless work where we took a lot of risks, I entered the space of global agency. And at the end, I always say, what I did for our clients was fantastic in that we looked around corners for digital strategy, digital trends. What I didn't do so well was see that the trend on the business side was that my clients were building their own social media shops internally. So I had that humble moment where I realized, maybe I need to go inside those larger global agencies and see how this is done. And I got my first gig at McCann,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
of course.
was director of new media, and I was working with the team that ran IHOP, Twitter, and we, basically navigated that Denny's Twitter beef that was really fun to be part of. Um, and honestly, that's where I got bit with the pharma bug. I had done a lot of work in influencer with Verizon, and we were doing a lot of social listening for some pharma shops and letting them, pharma companies rather, and letting them know about, what we're seeing in terms of patient journeys, what those barriers were for treatment, what's really inspiring them. And of course, I had a lot of experience in grassroots and social at the time, so I was able to bring that prowess to the table. But where I got really excited is, our clients started to become a lot more open to direct digital engagement. So the majority of my career has been in digital engagement. I ran the new media or digital or experience practice at an agency called CDM. And then I got an opportunity at Ketchum inside of Omnicom to be managing director, head of pharma and biotech business. And then I just made my way over here 2.5 months ago to Supreme, which is fantastic. It combines two longstanding communication shops that really have stellar reputations in PR and communications in health IT and med tech, biotech, and pharma. And I am loving this team and the work, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So your background, you talked about this history, the background, and I think the development of these personal brands and social media. You mentioned that particular Twitter desktop. Uh, I think also, as you look at Supreme, right? It's supremegroup.ai, right? So it's
That's right.
communications. You have AI literally in your web address. So your background, your web address, I think that you are uniquely qualified, to say it mildly, to 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 really talk about how and where AI is
Mhm.
taking communications today, especially in that, this life sciences area, the pharma area, right?
That's right. In communications, as practitioners, as our clients that are handling their budgets, we are very much have always been the gatekeepers of the story. And what AI has done, particularly AI search, is it's really changed
Yeah.
discoverability. And that's where, our people have just really embraced that and started to do the things to make sure that our clients are showing up where they need to show up. I like to joke that, I mean, it's a joke, but it's not that funny. But, when people do a search for something, whether it's a condition or they're looking into a company or they're looking into a medication, that first sort of AI overview is being seen at a much more rapid pace than people clicking on links. So the joke is that, clicking on those blue links is going to be akin to like microfiche research in something here. Because people are just aren't doing it. They're
No.
taking that first view and they're running with it. And our brands need to make sure that that information is accurate, that it's correct, and that it's actionable. And that has really kind of turned PR on its head in terms of gatekeeping because the kinds of sources that come up have changed a little bit. It's changing how we think of the media that we should go to, the journalists that we're talking to make sure that we are covering our bases and where the information is showing up.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because you obviously mentioned AI overview, which I think people sort of synonymously think of as Google, because
Yep.
obviously any Google. But I also think that it's such a bigger landscape than that because, hey, your AI, your friendly AI that you use, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Pilot, where
Mhm.
their search engines. YouTube is a search engine. I mean, this actually
100%.
definition of search engine even today has expanded in the last few years, way beyond Google.
That's right. And we talk a lot about how Gen Z uses TikTok for search
Yeah.
because, quite honestly, even in health discovery, there's some really good and relevant content on TikTok. So, search has absolutely been democratized across so many new voices. And that is also something that I think the really good practitioners have already understood and embraced and really have tapped into to new voices to make sure that the messages are getting out there.
I remember reading this stat towards the end of, and I wish I could remember where I saw it, but it was a stat that said something about 80% of all web searches globally today are really short form content. I mean, the idea of what's happened with TikTok and Instagram and Reels and what, like YouTube, short form content is
Right.
where it's at. Is that, and walk us through a little bit, like, this idea of using AI to improve communications. What are some of the things that you're recommending to your clients? I mean, obviously you want to get them into these AI overviews, but what else are you recommending?
Honestly, I have to say that it's that sort of traditional intuition on the right channel, on the right voices is really this, it's the same practice. It's just evolved a little bit to the voices and the channel. So, for example, short form is king at the moment, but it's not just any short form. You have to be incredibly careful about the context. You have to be careful about the messenger. And the message itself can't be very promotional.
Right.
So it's just those, old tenets of, knowing your audience and keeping it simple, but also really just sort of trusting in the voices that already have that credibility. We talk a lot with our clients about permission. When I talk about reputation, often describe it in terms of permission. So a good reputation gives you permission to do something. And sometimes, if we're being frank, and our clients hire us to do so, some of our clients don't have the business permission or the cultural permission or the social permission even to speak the message that they really want to speak, and we need to make sure that we're tapping the voices that can.
Yeah, yeah. Is some of that just sort of somewhat of the like the shackles related to, pharma and some of the life sciences, what they can and can't say, for patient facing sort of context, right?
Yes, and of course there is heightened, scrutiny on that
Yeah.
right now, but honestly, I think it's the same. Because I come from entertainment, I always found that challenge to be fascinating because,
Good point.
yes, because I just know what good looks like, and one of the tenets in entertainment is like give the people what they want. So I apply that to pharma. You got to give the people what they want, and of course, we're compliant, and we're not over promising, and we're providing fair and balanced information, but you still have to keep the main thing, and give the people what they want.
Yeah. I wrote that down. I know what good looks like. I don't know what good looks like. I think I need to work on that.
You do know what good looks like. That's why you got the great name for your podcast.
That's interesting. So, one of the questions that I've been asking people lately on various phone calls, because I'm truly interested, and I'm going to ask it of you, and you'll probably remember, I'm sure you'll remember the campaign when I ask you this question. And the question is, what can AI do for you?
Hmm. Me specifically, personally?
Your clients, your company, what can AI do for you?
So AI is an extension. It is an amplifier. It is an enhancer. And I know that we're going to talk about the limitations, but there's so much promise. And I think that in terms of PR, in terms of our clients, it is putting your message. Um, on steroids.
Ah,
It is absolutely exponentially increasing the scale and speed in which you can credibly get your information out there. And I say credible because AI is quite good at helping us identify, those channels, those messages that will resonate. It has gotten so much stronger even in the past, I would say, 6 months.
oh yeah, for sure.
Um, and
Yeah.
then even from a localization perspective, it can get quite granular if you want to speak to a specific community or audience in a very specific place. It's just a turbo speed in terms of your content generation, your insight generation, and with the right practitioners, you really can do a lot more with a lot less.
Yeah, I think everybody has really noticed that the last 6 months, it started about, it feels like it's been forever, but it feels to me like the last year and a half, and especially the last 6 months, it is
Hmm.
accelerating. And I think that I'm not the only one who's asking myself, how much faster can it get, right? And the answer is, who knows, right?
Right. That's right. And honestly, I think that the speed and the quality depends on the practitioner. I know everybody says it, but it's still worth repeating. One of the things that we're really proud of here at Supreme is we've got over 65 PhDs on staff. So the quality of the input of our queries and data and the quality of our kind of judgment of the output is what helps us move faster, what helps us make sure that the content is resonant and compliant. And that is really kind of up to us, not just the tools.
Right, right, right. And I would imagine, and I'm just curious in the sense that they talk about this too, that you actually as a company have to have somewhat of a, you have to have a governance plan, right? I mean, the sense of,
We're
your
required.
team, yeah, you're required, your team knows exactly where the lanes that you need to operate in.
That's right. So we have our own governance just as a group, but we are required, according to the agreements that we have with each of our clients, to even have a separate set of governance. So it really does vary across the board. So some of our clients, we may not use AI at all because it's just not something that we have in our contract. But for most of our clients, we have a set of rules of the things that we can and can't do. And it's our job to maximize what we can do for our clients. And that's something that we talk through with them just about every week, just
Right,
making
right,
sure that they understand that, everything that we can bring to them.
right. So you alluded to this earlier, so let's flip that coin and talk about um, where AI is being overhyped.
Yeah. So the overhype is really on, um, I think, the output. There's a lot of talk about AI slop. Well, you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of non-slop that is just adequate. It's just mediocre. Most of the output is okay. And I think what's been overhyped is people being so fearful of, it taking jobs and creating all of this poor content out there. When I have to say that there's just so much more human touch and enhancement that's necessary at this point. I think there's a lot of overhype right now in what it is that AI actually can do. It still can't provide that story. It can't
Yeah.
provide the judgment that really makes for the content that you and I were just talking about. We know what great looks like. We have to give the people what they want. And the people don't want the first thing that comes out of
Right,
AI.
right,
It's not ready. It's not
right.
ready for prime time. So that's where the overhype is. Yeah. People are nervous. And yes, these things are, they're definitely getting good very, very fast, but right now is not the time to be nervous.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I want to say, like, using an AI tool and then asking the AI to write it as if they were a human really doesn't work.
No, no, you have to remind the tool so many times of what humans do. And you have to remind it, like, remember, we're doing this on behalf of so and so. You have to remind the tool of what it's meant to do. It's that imperfect. And that's where there's a lot of still overhype.
Yeah, that's funny. And I think that actually leads into, you're talking about your tagline with trust. And I think that, there's this sort of general environment that we're in right now where there is a lack of trust in media across the board, and healthcare is not immune to that, of course. And I think AI kind of feeds into that
Mhm.
when you talk about, the content that's being out there, how it's being generated, fake content, is this real, is this not, and whatnot. Um, what can you do? What can Supreme Group do? And the leaders, what do you personally do in the role that you take in building trust with your clients, which builds that trust in the audience?
Yes, I love this question. We could talk all day about it. In my mind, the distrust in AI is actually third. It's our third problem. In anyone that's right now operating in media and pharma knows that those are our top two, kind of hurdles. There's a lot of earned mistrust in pharma and healthcare. There's a lot of mistrust in media and who those storytellers are. And I do think that we bear some of the blame. Anyone that's in the work right now knows that as storytellers, as people who understand spin and understand taglines, that we do have a lot of power in this space. And AI and whether or not something is real is our third problem because we really have, in my opinion, we really have to like address head on the issue of transparency.
Yeah,
um, a lot of brands, a lot of products claim to be patient first. And unless you are truly patient first, I think that the messages and the content that we put out seems disingenuous. And that is the key. I think as long as you keep the patients first, you keep the mission first, that is what our clients really look for us to do and make sure that that is coming through in everything that we're putting out there internally and externally for them.
Yeah, I think really getting back to what you're saying, like you know what good looks like, and I think that intuitively, right?
Mhm.
As whether we're on the business side or patient facing, I think intuitively we actually kind of maybe all know what that looks like, and then but we question ourselves, right? We think, well, or to make maybe get something out there in the marketplace, the move and the pressure to
Yeah.
be out in front,
Yes.
right?
Yes. We get lost in that, I think, on the side of the business because uh, we are operating in message maps and KPIs.
Yeah,
But you and I know when we're walking into, an emergency room or a doctor appointment, you're not drawn in by a message map, right?
right.
And certainly someone that's working with you is thinking of the KPI of like conversion, like am I going to take this intake into a paying client? But at the end of the day, that's not what your concern is, right? So I think always centering our core audience and stakeholder and what it is that they need is always going to get you right to what great looks like and what good looks like. And it's once you think of it that way, it's so simple. It's actually so simple to make that right call.
Yeah, yeah. I do think, it's like they say this all the time, right? Healthcare is complicated. Healthcare is complicated. I mean, you could probably say that of any industry. I mean, look at the travel industry right now. The travel industry is super complicated, right? So it is complicated, and I think what I'm hearing is AI can help with that, but it can also on the other side make it more complicated, right?
Hmm.
The last 6 months, well, last year and a half, last 6 months, it has accelerated. Where where is this going in this year and into next year? I mean, keep it, no, I don't want to say a decade because God, I mean, we could have sentient AI by then, and who knows? I watch the
Right.
Terminator. I know what's happening, right? No, I'm just kidding. But, but, but it is accelerating, and I would imagine that is the challenge, is for you and your clients and the work that you do is keeping up with that.
That's right. I'm always just kind of looking at the Amazon Health and what we're seeing with ChatGPT rolling out their health for
I
patients.
know, right?
And honestly, we've already seen that where people get their discharge paperwork, they're literally uploading it into chat to just really find out, like, look, this is 7 pages. What am I meant to do? Right? What am I, what are the drug to drug interactions? People, early adapters have already been doing that, but I do think that with the rollout of these tools, it's going to be so democratized that even people who aren't incredibly tech savvy will be doing that kind of consultation, second opinion work with directly in AI. And what we need to do in terms of, whether it's media visibility or the story from a brand perspective is know that they're going to, on the patient side, on the caregiver side, be making advancements, leaps and bounds beyond what might be compliant, right? On the business side. So I think the very best clients that we have are very aware of that, and we're doing what we can to make sure that we completely understand the journey is changing
Yeah.
on the patient side by quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, my husband used to manage an orthopedic practice, and you know, for years people would walk in, and of course, the patients were like, "Well, I Googled this, and
Mhm.
this is what I have." You know what I mean? And now you could obviously that this is the next evolution of that, right? As our ability to search and query
Yeah.
AI. And we all know, of course, that the more people that are doing these queries on AI, the more
Yeah.
the AI learns and delivers back what you would think would be a better response. You hope so anyway, right?
That's right. And, I even find myself being a little disheartened when I mention something to a physician that I'm meeting with, that look, this is what I looked up or I researched, and you could see it. You could see
Yeah,
it on their face.
yeah,
They're trying to hide it, but they want to roll their eyes so badly.
they do.
And they really just have to give in and embrace that. This is the new normal.
Yeah, yeah,
there are going to be people who come in that tell you a story from TikTok. There are going to be people
Yep.
who have an assessment from chat.
Yep. Yes.
And you need to treat it as if that was that person's mother in the room, right? Asking another question because it's just as real to that person. That assessment is just as real. And some of the work that we do even on HCP comm side is just make sure that they even understand what the conversation looks like, right? That they understand that the trends, in terms of what are some of these ad hoc things that people are doing to address their symptoms so that you know that they're about to come in and mention dandelion tea to you and you cannot roll your eyes when you hear it and that should be a keyword for you to go to, a particular topic because we're letting you know that this is where the conversation is shifting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a roller coaster. I really do.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe it. We're just about out of time here. Tell our audience where they can learn more about you and Supreme Group.
I would love for you could reach out to me on LinkedIn at Nicky Battle, or you could go to supremegroup.ai and learn all about our platforms called Supreme Intelligence and how to work with us. We'd love to meet you.
Yeah, Nikki, fascinating conversation. I think that we actually will have to gather, I think, in like 6 months again, get together
Yeah,
and
right?
like let's see where the needle has
See what
moved.
exactly.
Yeah, on the trust issue, and let's just see if we're still, if I still understand that I know when I see it if it looks that it
That's
looks
right.
good, right?
And you do. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So just remind my audience, if you learn more about Nicky Battle and Supreme Group at supremegroup.ai. Connect with her on LinkedIn. And of course, learn more about this show on the program page on healthcarenowradio.com. And be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email at carol@healthcarenowradio.com. Until next time, I want to know, what's your tagline?